This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. The Carter administration today leveled an economic and diplomatic punch by land, sea, and air at the Soviet Union in retaliation for Moscow's military intervention in Afghanistan. But none of the moves appeared particularly potent. Marvin Kalb reports from the State Department. We'll have that Marvin Kalb report for you a little later in the broadcast. Meanwhile, the Aluminum Company of America, Alcoa, has broken off negotiations with the Soviet Union over a smelter project, part of $100 million worth of technology for Siberia. The company spokesman said current circumstances forced that move, made a day before President Carter announced an export ban against the Soviets. U.S. Defense Secretary Brown in Peking has offered the Chinese a high-technology satellite ground station that could have military uses. The ground station primarily is intended to pick up information that could assist in gas and oil exploration, mining, and agricultural development. The satellite pictures also can detect troop and material movements around the globe.
When I'm constipated, I want relief I can count on. Overnight. Phillips is a true blue friend.
My laxative should be dependable, too, and work overnight. Phillips is a true blue friend.
Phillips Milk of Magnesia Liquid works with your body as you sleep, using your body's water to lubricate and soften. Next morning, most people get gentle relief.
Phillips is a true blue friend.
Phillips, available in fresh-tasting mint, America's true blue friend.
The new Subaru is beautiful in places you can't see. Its horizontal engine helps flatten corners. There's front-wheel drive. And the crash wall and spare tire are positioned to absorb impact at road speeds. All are concealed under a taut, down-sloping skin that's shaped to improve road holding and hold down gas consumption. Finally, a great body comes with both beauty and intelligence. The bigger, roomier 1980 Subaru. Inexpensive and built to stay that way.
Well, we now have Marvin Kalb's report on the U.S. economic and diplomatic retaliation against the Soviet Union because of Afghanistan.
The U.S. wants to act tough, but equally important, wants to be seen as acting tough. Therefore, the packaging today of 3 anti-Soviet actions, since no one standing on its own is all that impressive. First, the American diplomatic mission in Kiev is to be closed down. 7 U.S. officials and their families to be pulled out of the Soviet Union. And the Soviet diplomatic mission in New York, which is independent of the Soviet UN mission, is also to be closed down, and its 17 officials and dependents to leave expeditiously, to quote the spokesman. The upshot of this decision is that the U.S. will have no one left in Kiev, but the Russians will still have their UN mission in New York, a decision the U.S. government was prepared to make, even though it lost in the exchange. Second, the Civil Aeronautics Board has reduced from 3 to 2 the number of weekly Aeroflot flights from Moscow to New York and Washington. Pan Am stopped flying into Moscow a little over a year ago. Finally, the Coast Guard is keeping a closer watch on U.S. territorial waters off both coasts and off Alaska to reduce Soviet fishing hauls in these rich waters. Officials know these actions must be undertaken by other nations too, or what the U.S. has done on its own becomes less meaningful.
It clearly requires that those other nations in the world which have spoken with great vigor about the aggression of the Soviet Union must act with equal vigor. Or to paraphrase something from our own revolution, we must either hang together on this one or hang separately.
Still, the administration plans to send Ambassador Thomas Watson back to Moscow within the next week to maintain close contact with the Kremlin during this big power crisis. This action seems at odds with the fanfare that accompanied his recall for consultations last week, and it may in fact prove to be a confusing signal to the Russians about the real seriousness of this new American policy of toughness. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
Afghan rebels fighting a Soviet force overwhelming in numbers and weapons claim to be holding their own in the mountainous regions of Afghanistan that they know so well. There were reports today of horse-mounted insurgents staging hit-and-run forays against the mechanized, air-supported Soviets. The Soviet-backed Afghan government has reopened their country now to Western reporters, and Hal Walker is there.
There is still evidence at the Kabul airport of a Soviet presence. The Russian transport planes that brought the men, arms, and supplies to help bring down the former government are still parked on the apron. But in the city of Kabul itself, there are only occasional signs that the Russians are here in any number, and the average Afghan pays them little heed. Life goes on as usual in the city streets, although serious clashes are reported in neighboring towns between rebels and the soldiers. Most of the tanks and troops have been removed from Kabul and have taken up positions surrounding the city. Reporters are barred from traveling outside Kabul, and several who have tried have been arrested. The Karmal government has lifted its ban on foreign newsmen and permits them now to cover the city itself, presumably to show that things are back to normal after the coup. But press freedom is limited, and a curfew goes into effect at 11 p.m. The order of the day in Afghanistan is business as usual, or at least the appearance of normalcy. But the presence of so many Soviet troops dug in the surrounding countryside is anything but normal. And from what we can learn, they give every appearance of being dug in for a long time to come in support of the Karmal regime. Hal Walker, CBS News, Kabul.
Two-thirds of Afghanistan borders on Iran and Pakistan, and it's into those countries that hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees have been fleeing. But because of the recent turmoil in Iran, Pakistan now is bearing the brunt of this exodus. Bruce Dunning reports from the Khyber Pass.
The wave of Afghan refugees didn't begin with the all-out Soviet invasion. It began more than a year ago when Afghanistan's first pro-Soviet government began campaigns to change the deeply rooted Islamic traditions of these tribal people. About 400,000 have crossed the 1,500-mile frontier. Since the latest coup, they come at a rate of 5,000 a day. They slip through the lightly guarded border, accepted by the Pakistanis, who regard them as fellow Muslims in need. They live in makeshift camps strung out all along the border, most of them here in the north. The latest arrivals have only tents or straw huts. It costs the Pakistani government $5 million a month to give them only the most basic food. Sadiqullah thinks he is 19 years old. A teacher of religion, he walked from Kabul to Pakistan, a 2-week journey. He and the others here said they left because they were not free under the pro-Soviet governments to practice their religion and to bring up children in the traditional ways taught by Muslim elders. Mostly the refugees are semi-nomadic tribesmen who have always roamed freely back and forth across the border. One person here called them men born with a rifle in hand. They speak proudly, often boastfully, about going back into the mountains of Afghanistan to fight as guerrillas against the Soviets. The Afghans are determined to resist, though they are naively overconfident about their ability to take on the Russians. The rebels get some arms, some support from exiled Afghans in Pakistan, but they are badly divided into a dozen or more groups, none of them with effective leadership. Desolate mountains have helped Muslim tribesmen drive off invaders for centuries, and now, say the rebel refugees, the mountains will again be their allies, this time against the Soviet forces. But the Soviets have subjugated Muslim tribesmen within their own borders, and now they appear ready to do so throughout Afghanistan. Bruce Dunning, CBS News, in the Khyber Pass near the Afghanistan border.
The American agriculture movement today called on farmers to parade in pickup trucks and other vehicles in Washington February 16th to show Congress their displeasure with the administration cutoff of grain sales to the Soviet Union. A spokesman said the Carter proposal to buy the embargoed grain benefits only the big companies. Meanwhile, the government announced today that grain markets will open tomorrow after a 2-day moratorium to give investors time to assess the impact of the grain cutoff. A belief there'll be an increase in defense spending helped send the market up sharply today in heavy trading.
Let the world of Amway come to serve you.
These Amway distributors really know their products. They've tested them themselves.
They'll prove that Amway products work for you, right in your own home.
Your satisfaction is guaranteed, or we'll refund the full price.
That's how we make sure our customers are happy.
When someone wants to tell you about Amway, Listen and get the whole story.
Shop the world of Amway, so easy to do.
When you suffer from arthritis, imagine being able to put the strong relief of aspirin right where you hurt most. Now, with amazing Aspirin cream, you can get the strong relief of aspirin directly at the point of minor arthritis pain. Strong, penetrating relief which lasts for hours, with none of aspirin's possible side effects. Aspirin cream, fast-acting, no embarrassing odor. The strong relief of aspirin right where you hurt. Remarkable.
The Carter administration appears to be shifting gears in its response to the occupation of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. And while that response still is one of diplomacy, the words are becoming less diplomatic. Leslie Stahl reports.
For the first time since the hostage takeover began, the White House today described the militants at the embassy as Marxist radicals and warned the Ayatollah Khomeini and the Revolutionary Council that unless they step in and take over control at the embassy, Iran may be thrown into deeper chaos and disintegration. Spokesman Jody Powell said the administration now questions whether either Khomeini or the Revolutionary Council has control over any actions at the embassy. In an apparent shift in policy, Powell seemed to be trying to drive a wedge between Khomeini and the militants by charging that those radicals may see chaos in Iran as beneficial to their particular political ends, which he said are incompatible with Islamic beliefs. He said those Iranians who care about their nation's political independence and religious values must now question whether a small group of terrorists should be allowed to place those values in peril. Powell said the U.S. will still pursue its policy of seeking economic sanctions against Iran through the United Nations, even though he concedes that that could lead to further disruptions in Iran and therefore play into the hands of the radicals. Powell said the only way for Iran to escape further disintegration is for Khomeini to step in and persuade the militants to release the American hostages. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
Day 66 of the Iran crisis brought more internal problems for Ayatollah Khomeini's government. In Tabriz, a protest strike against the central government kept schools and shops closed. And along Iran's southern coast, two major port towns were virtually boarded up after violent clashes between rival Muslim sects. The 79-year-old Khomeini, citing excessive fatigue, announced that he's going to spend 15 days in seclusion and asked that all demonstrations be canceled beginning this Saturday. The growing internal unrest in Iran has brought a crackdown on foreigners. Reporting the story, here's Liz Trotton.
There are about 150 foreign newsmen in Iran now. They come from all over the world to cover this major story and are permitted to work after they are accredited by the Ministry of National Guidance. For the most part, journalists here have been accorded the freedom of movement they enjoy in Western countries. But now, that freedom is threatened with an announcement from the government that Western journalists may be expelled from Iran in the near future. The threat came from Abu Ghasim Sadegh, Chief of Foreign Press for the Ministry of National Guidance.
Our revolution has created a vast cultural gap with what West understands life should be, and we are trying to close this gap. And this is where the media can help a great deal.
Indeed, there is a culture gap. The very nature and ritual of Islam is an intellectual confrontation for the West. And the new religious militancy inspired by the revolution has only heightened the challenge. As with most stories, there are negative aspects in the telling of the Iran story. Bloody challenges to the Khomeini government in Azerbaijan province. Mistrust and defiance of the new regime in Baluchistan province. A serious threat to Ayatollah Khomeini. From the official point of view, the Western press focuses too closely on these aspects.
When I have an American reporter from one of the major television stations coming from Rome, and he says that, my God, I thought the whole country was falling apart. I was even afraid of how am I going to get from the airport to the hotel, and when I came and saw everything calm and quiet, I was surprised. And that reflects the kind of negative reporting or reporting out of context.
In the midst of these political and religious clashes, there is a semblance of normalcy in the city of Tehran. The legendary traffic jams are still a game of nerve and skill. The businessmen and housewives maintain their daily life. Street vendors cook their hot red beets in the markets. But against this background, one must weigh the headlines. Afghans attack the Soviet embassy in Tehran. Armenians attack the Turkish embassy in Tehran. Afghans attack the Afghanistan embassy in Tehran. And above all, Americans still captive in the U.S. Embassy. Liz Trotta, CBS News, Tehran.
Shapur Bakhtiar, Iran's last prime minister under the Shah, says Ayatollah Khomeini's fall is inevitable, and he's organizing an armed resistance movement to battle a communist takeover when Khomeini goes. Bakhtiar, in a Paris interview with UPI, said he has taken a page from Khomeini's handbook and is smuggling propaganda tape recordings into Iran.
Taster's Choice freeze-dried coffee. The image of ground roast. The crunch. The aroma. And the flavor. And now, with ground roast prices rising, it's good to know that a half a pound of Taster's Choice can make as many cups as 2 pounds of ground roast. So you could be saving with Taster's Choice, regular and decaffeinated, while still getting the look, smell, and taste of ground roast coffee.
Fix Formula 44D, please.
Helen, with this nasty cough plus congestion, I need...
Formula 44D.
But Helen, I need a decongestant, not just strong cough medicine.
You need Formula 44D. It's strong like Formula 44. Has the strongest non-narcotic cough suppressant you can buy. Plus ingredients to help unstuff your nose and loosen up for chest congestion.
That's what I said. Formula 44D. Strong for coughs plus congestion.
Israel Television reported today that U.S. Air Force planes have been flying exercise runs from a new Egyptian air base near Luxor, which is within easy reach of Iran, Afghanistan, and every Persian Gulf nation. The Carter administration and the Egyptian government both confirmed that an Egyptian base had been used. More on this story on the Egyptian-Israeli summit from Doug Sefton in Aswan.
Egyptian Defense Minister Hassan Ali denied plans for a base, but repeated the Egyptian offer of military facilities. But General Ali did admit that the joint American-Egyptian military activities have taken place recently in Egypt.
As I mentioned, maybe in the last few weeks, we managed to have some exercises with the American Air Force somewhere in our country.
Israeli Prime Minister Begin toured the temple at Abu Simbel this morning, seemingly aloof from the controversy of just how tightly the United States and Egypt are linked militarily. Later, on a balcony of a Nile River hotel, Begin and Sadat began what turned out to be a meeting of more than 2 hours. At one point, they moved to a more remote area of the hotel complex to continue their talks over maps of the Middle East and Africa, suggesting to some observers that Begin and Sadat were concerning themselves with the big picture at the expense of the questions of Palestinian autonomy and normalization of relations, the issues which had brought them here in the first place. There is some concern expressed in Egyptian government circles that this has happened. A high official, for instance, feels the questions being raised in Israel over American-Egyptian military cooperation are merely a diversion from the hard decisions that have to be made over the West Bank. Doug Sefton, CBS News, Aswan.
Seattle gets lots of rain, but usually it doesn't snow very much there. Today, Seattle had lots of snow, 6 inches of it, in fact. The city put all 6 of its plows to work. Householders poked around cellars to find shovels, and traffic, predictably, was in a horrible mess. Cars skidding on the steep hills and backed up everywhere. It was Seattle's most snow in 6 years. After a major mid-air collision and several near misses at the San Diego airport, the National Transportation Safety Board asked the Federal Aviation Administration last month to tighten air traffic control in the area. It warned of danger of another catastrophic collision. Well, today the FAA rejected that recommendation. It said the immediate tightening of controls, quote, risks creating confusion that would detract from safety. It started yesterday as an outing for school children in a suburb of Mexico City, but a runaway truck left 20 dead and fears today that the toll may climb. Richard Wagner narrates this report in New York.
According to Mexican police, the truck lost its brakes at the top of an upgrade, careened backward down the hill, and smashed into a group of school children, teachers, and parents. The tragedy happened at mid-morning in Xochimilco, a southern suburb of Mexico City. About 150 elementary school pupils were walking to an outing in a park near their school. Eyewitnesses said about a dozen of the children were dragged over an embankment by the runaway dump truck. 16 elementary school pupils, ranging in age from 6 to 10, were reported killed at the scene. 4 adults, 3 teachers, and a parent also died along the road. Officials fear the death toll may go higher because 12 children are hospitalized, 6 of them listed as critical. Police say the truck was in bad mechanical condition, the brakes failing completely. The 26-year-old truck driver fled the scene in fear of his life at the hands of outraged relatives of the dead children. He waited at his home for police and has now been jailed, charged with manslaughter. Richard Wagner, CBS News, New York.
Exxon, to the dismay of some of its dealers, says gasohol cannot be charged on its credit cards. Other major oil companies are split on the issue. Shell, Mobil, and Standard Oil of California say it's okay to use their credit cards to buy gasohol. Texaco and Gulf are on Exxon's side. The head of a New Jersey Dealers Association called the Exxon ruling against the best interests of this country in view of the government's policy of pushing gasohol as a gasoline substitute. The workers who man the nation's oil refineries went on strike today. The Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union called out 60,000 members at 100 oil companies. The union wants higher wages and full medical and dental insurance. Supervisors were on the job at most refineries, and the walkout was not expected to have any great impact on consumers. Leaders of the United Auto Workers today endorsed a contract requiring Chrysler workers to give up $4,500 each, most of it in time off, to help the financially strapped automaker. A spokesman said there were only 5 dissenting voices in the 250-member Chrysler Council of the UAW. He said ratification by Chrysler workers would take until the end of the month. It appeared today that the widely expected 1979 recession never happened. For the first time, an administration economist acknowledged that the economy continued to grow through the year. Courtney Slater, the Commerce Department's chief economist, said preliminary statistics indicate the economy grew at an annual rate of between 2% and 3% from October through December. But she warned that that surprising show of strength does not change the forecast of a moderate and relatively brief recession this year.
What's the most important part of my day? I think my night. Because that's the only time I have to really unwind, put the day behind me, and get the rest I need. But some nights I have trouble falling asleep, so I take Sominex. Sominex helps me feel drowsy so I can get to sleep.
Sominex, America's #1 sleep aid. When you sometimes have trouble falling asleep, Sominex will work for you.
I'm having a real good day because I got to sleep last night.
What's wrong with cars today?
The shop has it more than I do.
Oh, seems like the real trouble starts when the warranty ends.
You can fight back against ordinary cars with an International Scout. Every new Scout is warranted for 100,000 miles on the engine and 5 years against any rust-through. Fight back against ordinary car warranties with Scout. Anything less is just a car.
For your nearest dealer, dial 800-IH-SCOUT.
South Dakota Senator Larry Pressler today withdrew from the Republican presidential race, not quite 4 months after he entered it. Pressler said his candidacy had not generated enough financial support or public attention. The Supreme Court today handed the real estate industry a major setback, ruling unanimously that brokers may be sued for illegal price fixing if they have agreed among themselves to charge identical commissions. Retired Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas has been hospitalized since Christmas Eve with progressive lung and kidney failure. Today, the 81-year-old Douglas was reported to be in guarded condition in the intensive care unit at Walter Reed Hospital. The Health Commissioner of Virginia today cleared the way for the nation's first test tube baby clinic. He acted after months of acrimonious debate. Charles Crawford reports from Norfolk.
State action today made it possible for Norfolk General Hospital in Virginia to become the first clinic for test tube babies in the United States. Louise Brown was the first. a child conceived in a laboratory. More accurately, Louise Brown was the successful result of years of research on in vitro fertilization, a technique that has produced 3 births in women unable to conceive because of blocked fallopian tubes.
From the operating room, we will receive a fluid like this, which is follicular fluid. This hopefully contains an egg.
Geneticist Jack Rary demonstrates the procedure he and other Eastern Virginia Medical School specialists will use. In a glass dish, the egg is fertilized. If successful, the resulting embryo is placed in a nutrient solution and carefully incubated for about 48 hours.
We would then place this embryo into the uterus of the woman from which we took the egg. At that point, it would be out of my hands.
This is the setting where the woman will undergo the in vitro fertilization procedure, a standard delivery room. Already thousands have inquired about the technique, but only a handful have been selected, including a Texas couple who talked to David Dick.
Well, I think there's probably not a more basic instinct in a human being than the desire to propagate one's own self, to bear a child, to be the progenitor of new life.
I very much would like to be able to feel a baby's first movement. I would like to be able to breastfeed a baby. I just think it's a part of being a woman.
The decision to permit in vitro fertilization in Virginia comes after more than a year of heated debate, led by the local chapter of the Virginia Society for Human Life, which claims there are inadequate safeguards to protect embryos conceived in a laboratory.
There's been virtually no research on primate animals. It should be done. And what they say is it costs too much and it takes too much time.
We're doing absolutely no experimentation. We're not freezing it. We're not doing any genetic engineering, nor do we want to do any of this.
The clinic will treat about 50 women this year at an average cost of $3,000 to $4,000. Officials say the first woman could be admitted here within the next 2 months, and that barring any legal action or other complications, the first U.S. baby conceived in a glass dish could be born before the end of this year. Charles Crawford, CBS News, Norfolk, Virginia.
And that's the way it is. Tuesday, January 8th, 1980. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Mazola, corn goodness.
Our runners traveled over 100 miles and carried pouches filled with the goodness of maize, corn. Today, this goodness, corn oil goodness, is essential to Mazola margarine. So Mazola has no cholesterol, naturally. And a fresh, delicious flavor, naturally. Taste Mazola margarine. It gets goodness from maize.
Mazola, corn goodness.
Who's the symbol of good customer care?
Mr. Goodwrench.
Who stands for your GM dealer's commitment to improving service at over 6,000 participating dealerships?
Mr. Goodwrench.
Whose face is seen nearly everywhere?
Mr. Goodwrench's.
Look for him. He wants to show you he cares about you and your GM car.
It's him, Mom.
Keep that great GM feeling.
It's Mr. Goodwrench.
With genuine GM parts.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
I'm Bob Schieffer. Hostages in Iran, Russians in Afghanistan, Defense Secretary Brown in Peking, Prime Minister Begin in Egypt. Reports on all of this here Wednesday morning.
Tomorrow on CBS.
People in the